record. And now we can begin. So I'd like to introduce you all to our panel of conversationalists for this evening. Each are members of established green teams throughout New Mexico who have been through successes and challenges throughout their green team existence. We have Marilyn O'Boyle and Tom Stark from EarthWeb, that is their green team at First Unitarian in Albuquerque. Tom also serves on New Mexico Interfaith Power and Light's Cool Congregation Committee, which is the committee that put this event together, and the board. We have Paula Donahue and Judy Smith from Congregation Albert's green team. They're also in Albuquerque. And Judy Smith also serves on New Mexico Interfaith Power and Light's Advocacy Committee and board. And then we have Dodie Hawkins from the Conference United Methodist Women's Green Team. And Dodie is also on the New Mexico Interfaith Power and Light board, I believe. That's right, Dodie? I think so. So we're all thrilled that you all five said yes and are willing to share some of your wisdom with all of us. So we'll begin by each of them sharing some background about how their team came about and some of the highlights of their work they're doing now. And then we'll launch more into a discussion. I have some general questions, but feel free if ones arise to ask them as we move throughout our conversation. You can put them in the chat box, and there will be more time at the end for Q&A as well. So why don't we begin with our presenters at Congregation Albert.
Go for it, Paul.
Judy, I'll let you start, Judy.
Oh, I was hoping you would with the history.
Oh, well, I can. Well, we started the Green Team in 2010, and Sherry Lewis, who was on the relatively new NMIPL board at the time, was a member of Congregation Albert and really wanted to start this Green Team. We had the luck of having an administrator at the time who was very aware of environmental issues and really wanted a committee to allow her to do some things at the congregation that she had already started. So we spent about a year we put out the word, and we got people who were interested in policy and writing at first. And so we had a couple of planners and some other people who were involved in environmental studies and other kinds of things like that. So we spent about a year putting a mission and goals together and working on some policies that were kind of on the sideline. So I think that Emily has a picture of the sustainability plan, and that's what we did our first year. We did a lot of little stuff. We changed out the light bulbs and did other things that we felt were pretty low key without getting big permission to do them. So our goal, though, was knowing that our board changes every 2 years and we don't ever know what the composition of that will be. Two of us had worked in community-based planning, myself and Susan Freed, who actually put the document together. And we understood politically that it would be important for us to set something kind of in stone that the board would adopt and that would carry them forward through more than 2 years. So it was kind of, I don't know, a little sneaky on our part, I think, but necessary. And that has been our guideline through the years now. We've been using it for the last 10, 11 years through a variety of projects so that we didn't have to keep asking for specific permission. We would ask for permission by saying, oh, by the way, you know, in the sustainability plan, it says X. So that helped us move forward. Judy, do you have more to add?
I would just say that I think looking back, because it was 10 years ago, part of this writing the sustainability plan also helped educate ourselves about the issues of environment and climate, because it was back in the day when it wasn't so popular to say things like climate change and what is that. And so we approached it in kind of a scientific and step-by-step way to educate ourselves and also to present something that had some heft to it without just saying, well, we want to work on environmental climate issues. And that wasn't so popular or well known at that time. So I think
And-
especially back then, it gave us a stepping stool and a little bit of heft to our comments when we approached people in the congregation.
And the sustainability plan, we made sure that we tied it to the ethics and writings of our own tradition. So there's a lot of Jewish quotes in there that talk about the environment. So I would say for each one of you, if you intend to write some kind of document, tie it to your tradition so that it has a place. It's not just an environmental thing. It really is about your religious tradition. And we looked at the building and the grounds, and we had things about water conservation, saving electricity, being careful about how we grew things outside, and all of those things in there. And education was a big policy or a big goal in that. So every year we use that to say, well, it's that time of year again, twice a year, where we do some kind of program and open it up to the entire community, to Albuquerque, and advertise and do a number of things like that. So it has helped us justify how we move forward and change what we do. It's got a lot of flexibility to it.
Yeah. But we did start small with things that, like changing light bulbs. That was kind of popular back then, and looking at our electric bills and that kind of thing. So that's how it all began back then for us. That's the history.
And just wanted to say that as time moved on, the first people who were in the group, 4 or 5 of them, they had done their thing. That was the thing that they enjoyed doing, was writing policy and getting it adopted and all that. And then other people came on as we started other projects, and we always made it clear that you could join the group without having to go to a lot of meetings and just choose something to focus on that was important to you. So when we started the pollinator garden, we got all kinds of people wanting to be involved. So how the group is composed keeps changing. And right now we're a little bit in a slump, as many other people are.
Well, thank you both for sharing some of that background. We do have one quick question can you make your plan available for the attendees? Would I be able to send that to
Well,
everyone?
please do. That's why I sent it to you.
That would be an
Will
honor.
do. Okay. And
Yeah.
thank you both. And we'll dive deeper into some more questions about programs and success. But first, let's hear how EarthWeb at First Unitarian in Albuquerque began. Thank you, Paula and Judy.
Okay, I'll go ahead and start, and then Tom can chime in after a while. We actually started out of a Stewards of Creation program. It was a year-long program that met once a month, sponsored by the Council of Churches. And there were a couple of us in that group that were members of First Unitarian, and we kind of found that there was a group already working on some environmental issues called the Green Sanctuary Committee. They were working on being certified as a green sanctuary. This was a National Unitarian Universalist Association program. So we teamed up with them and became the EarthWeb team, and worked the first year a whole lot on mission statements and who we were really going to be, what we were going to do, developed a flyer, which we've adjusted a lot since then, but basically focusing on both study and action regarding the environment and sustainability and climate change. So during this time, we've We have met continuously except for June and July since then, so it's I can't believe it's been that long. But we
What,
meet.
what year did we start?
We started in 2003.
Right.
So yeah, so we've met continuously since then. A meeting on the second Sunday of the month, right after the second service. That's convenient because we just stay there and share lunch and do our studying and planning actions and so on. And since then, we've had several projects. We adopted a 10-acre stretch of the Bosque, working with the Albuquerque Open Spaces to replant and care for the area after a serious burn. I think that was 2008, but I'm not sure of the year. But since then, that area has been expanded, and up until the lockdown, we've continued in this work. We got actually an award from Open Spaces for this work in 2010. We did more work on the church's energy efficiency and carbon footprint and became recertified as a green sanctuary in 2012. And we've had sustainability fairs from early on. I think probably that was about 2007 or so. We do this every spring with plant sales from the East Central Ministries and solar energy vendors, sales of tote bags, drink bottles, and so on. A lot of educational displays, worm composting, seed sales, different every year, but that's really popular with the congregation and something we didn't do last year, obviously, or this year, but hopefully we'll get back to it. And then we've also done a lot of regular presentations at the church. I think we've kept our profile out there, so everybody at the church knows what EarthWeb is. We've done like 5-minute pulpit editorials during church now and then, and we've also had longer forums in the social hall on Sunday mornings. We put on a play, Mother Earth versus Global Warming. That was a lot of fun. We've also had a green corner in the church's monthly newsletter with news about events, plus various tips and advice and so on. And of course, we participate in a lot of citywide, various climate change marches, citywide activities, and a lot of things with NMIPL. Several of us have been on the NMIPL board. Tom is right now. I was for about 7 years. Wayne Ivalo was there, and so we have a close affiliation with NMIPL, which we've really appreciated. We got the Cool Congregation Award in 2011 and used it to buy recycle bins and monitor for the solar panels on our rooftops. Tom's going to tell about some other activities and educational programs we've sponsored. Yeah, go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, education is a big part of what we do. We do a lot of book discussion groups, and a lot of the books that we get from it used to be called Northwest Earth Institute, and they're still there, but to get to their book discussion groups, you got to go to gpsen.org, and they have a lot of really nice, good discussions, and gets the participants really involved. And one of the other places that we got a book from was the UUA, Unitarian Universalist Association. It was the Our Place in the Web of Life discussion group book, and from that we got learned a lot of different things that we could do around our community. And one of the things that we decided to do was we got the congregation to be no disposable items in the social hall. We have a lot of functions, church functions, and also other people come in and use our social hall for meetings and so forth. But we put up that there should be no disposable items. So we all have plates. We have a new kitchen and a new dishwasher. So we really, that was one of the things that we also spent some money on, of our $1,000. And the last book that we did that we've been spending a lot of time on is The Drawdown. And we really have been encouraged about that. We spent 3/4 of a year doing that book discussion. And the reason we spent so long on that was we got a lot of positive input from the congregation. Our group grew to about 30 people during that book discussion group. And we're continuing to work on that. And it's something that I really recommend highly. It's thedrawdown.org, and they got a Climate Solution 101 that just came out. And it's a worldwide organization that's really working on not just stopping our carbon footprint, but drawing down carbon from that, so that we can get back to where we should be. And then the last thing that we really do is advocacy work, and we've done that this last year. Was really we picked up two bills that we wanted to work on, climate solution, or excuse me, solar, community solar, and then the green amendment. And I'd like to say we had one positive outcome on one. The community solar did pass. We've been working on that for multiple years, and green amendment got tabled, but we'll be working on it. I'm sure we'll be working on it in the future. But those are a few of the things that we work on, and we're always looking for new things. And we also do have, we didn't mention, but the garden that we have in the back, Marilyn. What's that one called? We got an award for that. It's one of the
Yeah,
only
it's a habitat. It's a
habitat.
yeah. Mm-hmm. It's
That's
a
on ground.
licensed or whatever it's called, certified.
Certified habitat.
Yeah,
Habitat.
yeah, and all Xeriscape, of course. So yeah, we've done a lot around the church, and I don't know. We also feel like our Earth Web was pretty influential in our. Well, did you want to talk about the new building too?
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Mhm. Well, just we built a new sanctuary a couple of years ago, and none of us were really on the committee, but we had a lot of influence and input there, so that it's a really wonderful energy efficient building, and we have the LEED Platinum certification on that new building. And then we also remodeled the social hall last year, and again, bringing it up to the LEED standards. So
Right.
I think we've done a whole lot for the church and for the congregation and for the surrounding area, and trying to be, influential in a lot of different areas. So I think it's been successful. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you both, Marilyn and Tom, for sharing some of that background about EarthWeb and what you're currently working on. We also have Jody Hawkins from Conference United Methodist Women. So Jody, would you like to share some of the background of your green team, or I think I know you as just the green individual of that, but if you wanted to share that.
Okay, thank you, Emily. And as I said, the word that I was feeling was discouraged, and perhaps you'll see, I'm not discouraged about life, but about green team. Okay, there's a big difference. Anyway, prior to 2016, if you had asked me, what did I think about climate change? I would say, well, I don't think anything, because I don't even know what climate change is. And United Methodist Women has a summer program every year, an educational program, and they were doing a program on climate change, and they asked me if I would teach it. And I said, well, I love to learn new things. I don't know anything about it. Well, and they had a wonderful, wonderful textbook. And we go down to Sacramento Methodist Assembly in the summer, and women come down there, and there were probably 50 or 60 women attending. Well, in order to be a certified leader of this group, you have to read a minimum of 12 books. And I want to tell you that by the time I finished my 12th book, I was inspired. I was inspired. And I truly feel that the Holy Spirit laid upon my heart that in my retirement and in, my time, that this was my calling. And I was just very enthusiastic. And of course, all the Methodist women were so enthusiastic, and I passed, sheets around and all this kind of stuff. Who wanted to help? And everybody wanted to help, until it came down to the lick log. And what it really boiled down to is I had two people to help me, Karen, who is on this video today, and Kathy. But we had lots of things to do. One of the first things that we did was get an energy audit for our church, and they were very, the pastor and everything were in favor of that. So we did that. And we looked into solar panels, which didn't get very far, but we certainly looked into it. But some of the things that we did do is we developed a resolution for the Methodist New Mexico Conference every year. So they have this big meeting, And so we had quite a presence there. And each year we would put forth a resolution like, you know, all churches in the New Mexico Conference will become styrofoam free. For instance, that was one. And then we would have a big table display, you know, United Methodist Women, and then we would have appropriate pictures on this display. So we were very proud of that. And so every year we went to annual conference. We went with some other groups. I think it was UU and NMIPL to Ford dealers when they were working on that to get the Ford dealers to get behind better gas mileage cars and that sort of thing. One thing that we were very proud of was each year we did a Lenten calendar and made that available widely. Anybody, I mean, it didn't matter what church you were in, if you wanted a Lenten calendar, and each year for 4 years we have updated that. I'm trying to think what else. Oh, one thing that we do is as part of the Methodist movement within climate change is each month we have climate tips that are put out by a brilliant woman on, and I'm one of the editors of that. And we disseminate that very widely. And I would just, any of you, if you want them, honestly, they are brilliant. And just contact me. I have, you know, most of them saved. I can get you on the mailing list. And so we, you know, we put those out in the weekly conference newsletter and that sort of thing. Trying to think what else we've done, but I can honestly say that it's kind of been a 3-person show. You know, if we're willing to do the work and, you know, whatever, however, well, I was going to say the expense, but that isn't true because the New Mexico Conference of United Women, as well as our district and then my individual church, are all very supportive. I mean, everybody supports anything that we want to do as long as we initiate it, you know, and as long as they don't have to do any work. So they'll put the money in, they'll support it, you know, like right now, I'm a big supporter of Bread for the World, and they're starting their offering of letters. And so we will be doing that both at my church, of course, all by video, and we will be doing it conference-wise. So as long as I initiate it, it'll get done. And so I'm very interested in hearing what, you know, I'm fascinated by the previous speakers and how organized they are, because ours is just kind of project to project. Sometimes we have a couple things, you know, going at once. And so we're not nearly as organized as the previous speakers, but, you know, as long as I'm able and I have these other, you know, couple of ladies that help me, I guess we'll kind of get going. You know, we have big plans, but just kind of one thing at a time.
Well, thank you, Dodie. And I think you'll find that a lot of people might be in that same boat of, you know, if I'm the one doing it, I'm the one attending this thing tonight. I know it might get done, but but we might not have a team at our back. So this is great. Now we can move more into our just general question and answer of our panel conversationalists. I do have some general questions, but feel free to put in any other questions that, you know, come to mind in the chat box, and we'll try to get to them. One of them that did come in for Dodie was if your climate tips, if that climate tips newsletter, what you had been mentioning, could be made available, or if folks could learn how to sign up for that. Okay, we'll send that out in a follow-up email. So we'll be sure.
I may be able to get it right now.
Oh, perfect. Wonderful.
Right here.
Well, in the meantime, while you're getting that out, I'm going to ask, I sent our panelists 4 questions ahead of time, but I think I might go to one of our second ones so we can keep good with time. But one of them, you all mentioned some of your programs that are working pretty well right now, but I'm curious if you've ever experienced any roadblocks or obstacles in trying to start new programs or bring new ideas to your faith community, and you know, how you overcame those obstacles if they did occur. I think any of you can just jump into that if you want.
Well, maybe I can talk a little bit about the situation or challenge that Dodie was talking about, which has to do with involving more people. Because we've run into the same thing, and a lot of times the group has kind of diminished down to, like, we start in the fall and maybe there's what, 5 or 6 people there maybe, you know, and it's the same people as always. We did go through several years where we tried to have a rotating chairperson and different roles and that kind of thing. We still try to have different rotating roles, but it's been a gradual evolutionary process whereby right now we have a leadership team, I'm going to say, that's me and Tom and 2 other people. And the 4 of us kind of meet right now by Zoom, you know, sometimes every month or sometimes every 2 months, just kind of plan what's going to happen in the next several months. And that's working pretty well. For a while, we did have different chair people, which was great, but people do burn out. And it seems like it's easier for people to commit to being part of a leadership team, I think. And then hopefully involving more people. But I think actually the way we have had our group grow and function well is through these courses. They're usually 6 to 8 sessions, and we've run them sometimes concurrently with our meeting. Like, we'll have a short meeting and then a study session, and then another meeting another time in the month. So 2 meetings a month and do it over a semester, you know. And that's brought in a lot of people. And then the drawdown, as Tom was saying, that the drawdown study was huge. There are a lot of people that are very interested in it because it's a positive approach to this horrible crisis that we're in. And right now there's a lot going on with drawdown. The book was written about 3 years ago, and the book is great, but it's being updated, and they're doing a lot of it online now. And if you go to just drawdown.org, you can look at the drawdown review, and they also have some new videos and a whole video education, Drawdown 101, which you can use with a group. And I think that is a good way to approach things. People right now, I think the consciousness about climate change has changed. People are much more aware of it, and they know it's a problem, but everybody is discouraged and scared. And I think if we can offer programs and approaches that give hope and give possibility and ways to act on things, I think that's the way to engage people and to be able to really move on things. So that's enough from me.
And we've one thing I didn't mention is that every month there's an electronic newsletter from our congregation, and we make sure that even if nothing's really happening, we put in some kind of an article or some kind of a question or some kind of green tips or something, so that something can spark some interest. And our own team has shifted. You know, we have people on the young end of things who are now new parents and can't really do much of anything and teach, and are new parents. And then at the other end of the team, we're all getting older, and a lot of people have a lot of infirmities. And so we have a team in name right now, but it's really the Judy and Paula show for right now. But we make sure that we offer things that might appeal to someone in the congregation that we're unaware of. Since we're not really meeting these days, you know, everything's by Zoom. We've really hooked on to the whole idea of tree planting this year. And because we couldn't do our annual tree planting that we usually do with open space because of COVID, we instead hooked onto the thing that was offered by the city, which is planting appropriate trees in appropriate places. And now we're going to be working with 2 arborists who will be offering a short program during a Friday night service and then offering a class by Zoom. So we're doing things that are positive. Also, same thing that you're saying is that you want to do something uplifting. People are really feeling crushed down right now, and want to do things that are accessible and interesting.
And I would mention that we had a project that never came to completion for 10 years. And we didn't give up. Well, we gave up at times, but we didn't forget, I guess you'd have to say. And we finally did get solar panels on the roof of our congregation. It was in the sustainability plan. So we wouldn't let people forget, but it was an economic issue, and just it just went on and on. And the team ebbs, and sometimes we have quite a few people who get interested in a particular project, and other times people are busy and they're not really hooked into what we're doing. So we try, but we do educational opportunities a couple of times a year, so we know that they still know we exist.
And then with the team that we have on paper right now, we make sure that when we're about to do something, that we send out an email to all of them and ask their opinion. So they are participating in a minor way, but they're getting their 2 cents in so that they still feel like a group.
Yeah. I'd say that things just seem to have to evolve. We've had to be continuing to change our focus and kind of latch onto something that looks like it's going to take off and go with it.
Yeah.
Thank you all. In all of your answers, in terms of how to avoid, or not how to avoid, because we're all going to experience roadblocks in trying to get these programs going in our own congregations or even getting our teams off the ground. But it seems like there's a lot of, it sounded like you had mentioned these courses and education help, because a lot of the roadblocks, I think, come from people just not understanding what changing the light bulbs has to do with a particular faith community. So education is an important key to that. Bringing, offering different approaches that are hopeful to the situation instead of depressing everyone about, yes, it is a depressing situation, our climate crisis, but offering different sparks that are hopeful help avoid those roadblocks as well, and just keep sparking that interest, because you never know who might go, aha, I like that. So I could hear all of that in all of your answers, that it seems what's held up any programs you've all tried to create was maybe just lack of knowledge in the rest of the congregation. Not that they didn't know, but just what does this work have to do with us? And I think yours at your sustainability plan sounds like it answers some of that too. You've tied in faith perspective.
One way that we did outreach too was very casual. It's like I go to Saturday morning services, and someone would just be sitting nearby and we'd be chatting before services started, and someone would overhear us, and I would be talking about the green team, and they go, oh, that sounds interesting. So actually I got 3 young people that way, just by, I didn't ask them to join. They asked to join, which is so much better.
That's wonderful. Yeah, just those conversations that we have out loud that can spark interest too. Before I see there's a question from Bruce, but before we get to that one, I do have one more good question to address during this conversation piece, and we'll address your question, Bruce, in the question and answer section. But I wanted to know from all of your perspectives, why are green teams and more broadly faith communities necessary in this work to address environmental issues? Because it sounds like your teams have been formed from aspects of your own faith traditions that has informed your green teams and the action you're taking. So why are faith communities and green teams necessary in this work?
Well, as I said before, I really came at this, totally ignorant. You read 12 books and I became, a dangerous person. But I really feel that the Holy Spirit laid it upon me to take this up because it's God's creation. And I think regardless of our spiritual or religious tradition that we adhere to, I think that every single community has some basic issue with God creating this beautiful earth. And if we don't take care of it, who will? Who will?
Yeah, and I've been wanting to do something with climate change for a long time, and I belonged to 350.org and some other organizations, and they're great organizations and they're really great movements, and they deal with the numbers. They crunch the numbers. They tell what's going to happen if we don't start working at it and bringing down the CO2 and so forth. But there were a lot of people that weren't looking at those numbers, or they weren't paying attention to it. And so I started thinking, well, maybe we need to go at a different situation. And that's when I joined New Mexico Interfaith Power and Light. And I've always been part of the Green Team. And it brings the spiritual aspect, like Dodie says, that all faith communities have some sort of caring for creation in their scripture. And we just need to start prioritizing that, bringing that to the forefront, bringing that spirituality of caring for our earth, where we live, and trying to get people to jump on board that way, because most humanity has some sort of believe in some sort of faith of some sort, and so we need to. And I've got a lot of great feedback from that. That is one of the things why the spiritual aspect of dealing with climate change is a great way of attacking this problem that we have. And also, if you want to win one of the Cool Congregations Awards, one of the first things you have to do is you have to develop a green team. So that's another reason why developing a green team is a great way of starting.
Oh yeah, you got to start with the green team to get those
Yes.
national awards.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Judy,
I-
I saw you speaking, but your mic might have been on mute, or maybe.
Paula can jump in on this, but the spiritual and traditional aspect of the Jewish faith is such a driving force, just as you all have described. And it was important to find through a congregation with people who are gathering because of their tradition. They're not coming to a scientific convention, but they're coming to something that's spiritually based, and that is such a powerful piece of our beliefs. And so it seemed to be a natural way to approach people through faith. It calls us, by anything we read on Shabbat, calls us to care for each other and for the environment. And so I'm guessing that everybody on this call feel the same way about that. And so it did help also to have our rabbi and our cantor include certain prayers at certain times in the service when we were having an event to highlight it. But the rabbi also brought up many prayers that are taken from our tradition to focus on the environment, because he's a big supporter of what we do. And we also found that it fills a gap, because we do have a social justice committee, and it's been active since the foundation of our congregation. And yet there's a social justice aspect to climate. There's a climate justice. Who should have clean water? That's a justice issue. And whose air is it okay to pollute or not? And so that's been a challenge actually, because we felt that maybe we could combine with our social justice committee to expand the vision of what we do and the meaning. And it's been so far, we'll probably be successful if we live long enough. But right now, we have only taken a few haltering, trippy steps.
And that committee too has changed over time.
Yeah, they
So,
changed.
I mean, their focus has changed and it depends on who the players are. You
Mhm.
know, all of a religious organization is just like a family, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and you want to do things together, but people have very different takes on life, and sometimes it's hard to coordinate your efforts. So you just have to be patient and not lose hope. That's why whenever we saw that we were losing traction, especially with the solar, I mean, it just about drove us off the edge when we couldn't really get solar going. That's when we started doing all kinds of other programs on recycling, on education, started the garden. The way we started the garden, Judy and I don't know if Judy explained it at the beginning when you showed the caterpillar, but we just went out there with some rope and just found a good spot for it and then asked permission. So
We put crime scene tape all around the spot we wanted. And then we reported to the rabbi that we had found a garden and we wanted to claim it. But that was very popular. And that's a good point, Paula, that when we ran into that road back of the solar, we found these, and the garden was extremely popular, even though sometimes it's just the two of us out there pulling weeds. But we had to find another route. So.
And I think, I just want to really applaud the comments so far. I completely agree that most faith traditions have some aspect of care for creation.
Yes.
Or care for the earth. So I think that a green team has a good place, a big place in being the spokesperson for the spokespeople, whatever, for the congregation at large, and also giving possibilities and actions and study and things like that the whole congregation can take part in. And the aspect of working on climate justice, I think, is very important. And we have teamed up somewhat with our social justice council as well, especially on this thing that we did 2 years ago in the new social hall, having no more disposable items. That was something that we worked very closely with the social justice council. So I think that doing that kind of networking within our own congregations, especially with social justice councils, but other kinds of things too. I mean, religious education, that's another thing we've tried to really work with, because working with the kids too. I mean, and we've had the children and the RE program working with us on the sustainability fairs, which they've really enjoyed and benefited from. So I think having various kinds of avenues and outreach within congregations is helpful.
Yeah,
I think that
I just wanted to jump in and say, I seldom use the term climate change. And as I was going to show you here, this says creation care. That's our creation care Lenten calendar. And, everybody thought that was so cool. And if Ed had said climate change Lenten calendar, they probably wouldn't have taken one out of church, And so anyway, I just wanted to make that point. Creation care strikes a soft chord, but climate change can bristle for some people.
is political, becomes political.
Yes, it does. Creation care becomes spiritual.
Mhm. The other thing that helped us too to be recognized in our own community and our own congregation was our work through NMIPL, because no one respects you in your own hometown, that kind of thing. But when we got the Cool Congregation Award for doing our plan, suddenly is like everyone was like, oh, I had no idea we had a green team. Even though we did programs twice a year, put stuff in the newsletter, it's like we didn't exist.
Wonderful. Well, thank you all for sharing all of your words of wisdom and this reflective conversation toward the end about why are green teams important, and then connecting that back to a wider community, that it's good to have a community at your back as well is wonderful. We're going to enter into more of our question and answer portion of our time, so our audience can or our other participants can ask questions of you to test you on all your knowledge, so to speak. But we'll start with Bruce's question that he put in the chat. He says, during the COVID pandemic, I presume your houses of worship were only lightly occupied or were virtually shut down. During this time, how did you manage energy use for heating, cooling, lighting? Do you shut off some HVAC zones or turn them down to set back or set up temperatures? And who is responsible for thermostat and lighting management to accommodate intermittent use?
I don't know. That's
I mean, there's nobody on our green team, on EarthWeb team, that has anything to do with that. However, I will say that I was on the church board. I've just finished that stint, and I do know that our building, our program facilitating manager, whatever he is aware of all these things and has lowered the heat and takes care of all of that. So, but we have no direct contact. We're not really in charge of anything like that as EarthWeb.
No.
We aren't either. And actually the rabbi asked us to intercede with the administration, get this, to say, please make sure that the thermostats are turned down. So we don't know if they have been or not, but we have stepped in for other kinds of things, like for the watering. We have a lot of grounds and we had a lot of issues with our water system. And now our new administrator, she started right before COVID. So poor thing really wasn't even in there, and then COVID got going. So she's on a learning curve, and she's great because she has called us to have meetings on Zoom so that we can make sure that things are done properly. She really wants to catch up.
When I wonder too, if your sustainability document that you have, which is grounded in your faith tradition, but also sort of you can point people back to it, has that helped in some ways in terms of managing that?
Yeah, a little bit.
It helps. Well, we just had an issue about some watering, and also a new company that's taking care of the grounds and what kind of pesticides they're using or not. And so we're able to go back to our original plan for the grounds and to our care for the environment goals. And that allowed us to inspire them to have a meeting with us and this company, so we can discuss our values in terms of what their practices are.
Yeah, we're going to have now that we discovered that they were indeed starting to use Roundup. You know, yeah, because the administrator didn't know anything about these kinds of things. When we heard that this was starting to happen, we said, please stop and let's have a conversation. And we're having a follow-up meeting. So,
yeah. But the administrator has been a key person really for us, especially because the original administrator was so interested in energy saving that she was already doing things. But the administrator who's in charge of the office and the functions of the grounds and all that has been a key person that we needed to work with, sometimes for good and sometimes not so for good, but over the years.
Well, my point is that if you leave it to somebody else, I would hope the green team people would inquire of those folks to really know what temperatures are you really setting it to? How are you assured you're saving the energy? In our congregation, we saved probably $6,000 last year just on energy alone for shutting things
That's
down.
great.
Yeah, we did have some conversations about it at the church board, and it's I think the fact that we have this LEED certification, which puts certain requirements on energy use and that kind of thing long term. So that's helped. I mean, we are within our parameters on all of that too. So
That's great.
Are there any other questions? You don't have to listen in the chat if you want to just, unmute yourself and shout out a question. Feel free. And if not, I might then bring back a question that I had cut out toward our ends just to leave some more time for our Q&A. But to our panel, can you offer any sage advice to some of our, aspiring green teams or folks who've joined us who do not yet have a green team, but what are the next steps they should take after this gathering to start one of their own?
I would say just find one or two interested people. You don't need a cast of thousands to get something going. And start simply. You don't necessarily have to do a complicated mission statement. It's good to know what your mission is, and then just do it. I would say don't be scared. Just do it. Just start it, and you may falter for a while, and you may have to circle around and change how you're doing something. But I would just say just try it.
I would say if you can get the leadership support that you want to have a green team, so that your leaders, whether it's the chairman of the board or the faith leader, someone, and also so that the administrator knows that you exist as a committee and that you have some basic support to proceed, and then do something fun or that's easy or that intrigues people because it has food with it or something.
And then I say also maybe use networking, and what Emily's doing right now is really great. We're going to be giving out a spreadsheet with all the green teams that are established, with all their names and numbers and emails. And then also network with the environmental groups, 350.org, Mexico, NMITL, the Sierra Club, because they're always doing something, and you can get involved with that and get your name out or find things to do. And yeah, like they said, just start small, and then start networking, get your leadership on board, and then start asking the green teams and the other environmental groups, can we get involved, and how do we get involved?
It was a big boost for us when we got an award from Interfaith Power and Light, and there's seed awards for,
Right.
Well, somebody else on the committee could describe it better, but discrete projects. It doesn't have to be a big deal, but if you're planting a seed in your congregation, and you get recognized, a piece of paper that says your name and that you won this award or whatever, it goes a long way to getting the team recognition and some backing among other people that you're serious about what you're doing and you've been recognized.
Right, and if you're interested in doing solar or audits, we can help you with that too. That's something the green teams can help with, or the other organizations can help with. But yeah.
Yeah, I think another important thing is visibility. Just keep being visible. Whatever your weekly newsletter or whatever. Every week we have a conference newsletter, and the tips that I was telling you about, those tips are in there. We always have little blurbs in there if there's something to read. I mean, they keep seeing it, and then the same thing, but like those tips, it's easy. If somebody else has already done it, you don't have to redo all of this. There is so much out there that you can use. So, we just keep plugging away, keep trying.
yeah, well, one thing I do want to say is that I think that one reason people do things nowadays is because of the community aspect of things. So I think that if you can have a way for people to plug into your group as a community of people that are all trying to be doing the same kind of work, that are all really working on climate change, I think that helps. Having some fun activities. We always have a Christmas party. We've done some summer activities. We did some river rafting. I even did it. Some fun activities together, and things where, and potlucks, and just some things where you actually are forming a green team, not just a bunch of people that are interested in the same thing, because they can do that with 350.org. That's fine. And then that's a great group. But I mean, we're looking at something else that has a spiritual connection, which to me also means a community of people that have a spiritual connection. And I think that's one thing that has kept our group going. And I mean, even this year, meeting over Zoom, I mean, it's great when I get to see my people in that Zoom room. There's everybody that I love, you know. I mean, I think that's a big part of it.
Thank you all for those tips, and I've written them down too, so I'll share those, the sage wisdom at the end when I send out a follow-up email. We're at the last minute of our time together, so I just wanted to first thank our panelists for joining us and sharing all of this about all of your work. This was wonderful, and you provided such sage advice to all of us about forming a green team. For those of you who are interested in forming a green team, I do have the national IPL's sort of packet on how to get one started with some of those more practical steps. They include these steps that everyone mentioned in our panel as well, like getting a couple of people, make sure you have buy-in from leadership. And then they show you how you can get engaged with some of their national programs as well. Some of our panelists have mentioned things like the Cool Congregations Challenge, which is a yearly challenge that you can apply for based off of whatever programs you've done. And then you can win up to $1,000 to go toward furthering your green team's mission or towards some other programming that you want to do. So that's a great way to be involved. They're also beginning something that's more local to each house of worship. So they're promoting a contest that you can hold within your house of worship to get everybody in the congregation involved in this work as well. And so I will send out that information when I send up the follow-up email. Our next Green Team gathering, as of right now, our next one will be on Tuesday, April 20th, and you'll receive news about that one as you did with this one. And it'll be again at 4 p.m. And right now, our plan is to discuss financing options for solar upgrades. And we'll be inviting a couple of guest speakers from organizations that help nonprofits and houses of worship do this. But if you all have something else you would like to talk about or to network about, feel free to send us suggestions, because this one happened because we got suggestions from everybody in our last one. So we want to make sure we're providing this space for what everybody is needing at this time. And I think that's it. So I'll send out a follow-up email with the sustainability plan, with the creation care tips, and then also send out that instruction manual for how to form a green team that's offered by the National IPL. And thank you all for coming. This was wonderful.
Thank you, Emily.
Thank you.
Good job.
Thank you. Great job.
Yep.
Wonderful.
Blessings, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.